when it's convenient. So, strategy 21 to 24. So what is the strategy? Well, it's been designed, or the intention was for it to provide a sort of overview or regional plan for both providers and practitioners across the Northwest region to support the development of research capacity and capability amongst NMAHPs, and importantly social care, because social care is now on the NIHR agenda. Now this strategy has been commissioned by Health Education England Northwest. It was back in, I think, November 2019, when the then director of training, transformation education asked us if we would write this on their behalf and put it into our service level agreement. But it is a consultation, although we've done most of the writing, and the consultation has been with Health Education England strategic directors, service leads, the clinical research networks on the Northwest Coast and Greater Manchester. And we've spoken to representatives from social care, clinical academics and consultants from across the region, as well as patient representatives. And we can come back to that consultation because it sort of coincided, obviously, with a very serious third peak of COVID, and a number of people weren't necessarily around the table. So once the draft strategy has been shared, I'm going to have to move this, Leanne, because I can't see. I can't see my slides there, sorry. Anyway, the strategy has been agreed and authorised by HEE. But I think what's important to say is that it's a 3-year strategy and nothing is written in stone, and that, you know, going forwards, we're hoping that through implementation we can amend and shape this to be something that's of use for everybody across the region. Okay, so I suppose the big question then is why do we need one? I think everybody's now familiar with the research that's been done on organisations having better patient outcomes if they've got a research active culture, and that we know over the last 10 years there's been a huge amount of input into NMAHP clinical careers, but there's still room for development. I think, you know, I mean, this has been serendipitous rather than planned, but it's been timely because COVID has highlighted the importance of research in health and social care. And that's brought, I keep saying that research is back in fashion. It's something that we can talk about more freely now, whereas before it sometimes seemed to be secondary to lots of other key issues. A culture of research supports recruitment and retention. The literature definitely states this, and this is really important to the likes of HEE, where this is their business about recruiting and retaining people, and particularly at a time when we're hearing that many people now are leaving the NHS after the challenges of COVID. And I think, again, other regions and other organisations were developing their own strategies, and I know Linda's here today, but it's be fair to say that HEE had seen the strategy that was originally developed in the Northeast region, and originally the plan was for us to develop something very similar. And I think as well, we talk about regions, and of course we know that that nothing really aligns, and that the Northwest region has got 3 or maybe 4 very distinct regions, and they're not necessarily all working at the same pace and doing the same things around NMAHP research careers. But I think HE in particular, as they are now back to being a sort of Northwest function, that they wanted a region-wide, a Northwest region-wide approach. I'm sure to everybody that's here today that these barriers enablers are very familiar to you. Now, this was a piece of work funded by HE, I think in 2018, 2019, and was completed by the University of Southampton. And it talks about the enablers, about funding awards, about getting people the experience and training that they need, making sure there's the advice and support, an awful lot around mentoring and coaching, clear clinical academic pathways, better integration across clinical and academic departments, more grants, more fellowship opportunities, better visibility of NMAHPs in senior research roles, greater alignment, and a larger number of clinical academic training positions. Those are the enablers, and the barriers are, you know, the opposite of that. The lack of the availability of positions, the lack of availability of funding, the challenges in maintaining research activity, and inadequate support from employing institutions. So again, we don't need to go over that. The literature says that over and over again, and we know that these are the challenges. So there was 5 strategic aims created, and these aims were designed to look at the challenges and support the enablers, and to embrace the breadth of research careers. So that isn't just about clinical academics, but that is also about research delivery careers and supporting those who want to lead in that area and become PIs and CIs, as well as embracing the social care, health and care community. So it's a big ask. It's a huge ask, and I'm sure, you know, it's been quite a difficult challenge to try and embrace all of that. So the first one is about a culture, creating a vibrant and growing NMAHP research culture, and what importantly underpinned by core commitment from employers who recognise the value of a research active organisation. And again, everything you talk about and everything goes back to that culture. If the culture isn't there in an organisation, it doesn't matter how often we train and support individuals, they're not going to grow and flourish and have the opportunities that they need. So we're acknowledging that we need increasing research capability, and that we need to do that by raising awareness, promoting research, promoting a culture of inquiry and critical thinking, and making sure that the environment is there so that when people get the skills and abilities and the opportunities, that they've got the support that they need. This was about providing clarity and support for regional research career development pathways, training and fellowships. So the pathways are probably quite complex, certainly to people outside of the system. We know that it's quite difficult to know what's out there and how to access it. So we also acknowledge that we need to build research skills and confidence in individuals so that they can be effective leaders, and we need to provide appropriate and supportive infrastructure, and we need to collaborate across all sectors. I think as well there's some silos where there's great things going on, and there's different organisations offering different opportunities, and it's not always clear to people whether or not they can access them. This about investing and supporting research talent within the NMAHP workforce came about because it's been recognised, again, it's in the literature, but also anecdotally, that people can reach they're getting into clinical academic roles where they do exist at a later stage in their career. So we're not maximising on the investment. Certainly when NIHR, those fellowships are very prestigious, but they're very costly. And we want people to be accessing them early in their career and doing more research. We want as much research as we can. So we need to support our rising stars. So recognising the need to provide a collaborative and individual opportunities for researchers across the region much earlier in their career. And you know, we have to have clear and effective research-related communication strategies for that to happen. The fourth one, again, as I've mentioned, we're embracing research delivery professionals as well. So we want to develop those professionals who wish to attain research competency through a clinical research delivery route, and so that they can lead and deliver research led by others. But more than that, we've talked about people actually delivering their own research. So wouldn't that be great? So you develop your own research and you lead your own research. So we recognise the need to support NIHR career opportunities, progression, leadership and professional development for nurses, midwives and allied health professions. It's very few AHPs in particular that are in clinical research delivery leadership roles. Well, the equitable Full access is very much about bringing social care on board. I mean, NHR have recently released their fellowships for social care professionals, but it's making sure as we move into the new care environment with our integrated care services, that we are embracing the wider workforce and making sure that those opportunities are available to everybody, and that the message that research is for all is across the healthcare spectrum and not just in our acute trusts. So those were the very, very, very broad, all-encompassing aims. So what's next? So the region's health and social care system is a devolved matter. So from HE's perspective and from all the partners that collaborated in this, it's recognising that this strategy really is about winning hearts and minds, because each individual organisation has the authority and flexibility to do this strategy in whatever way they see it's going to help them or not help them. However, all 4 partners, so that's the CRNs, North West Coast, Greater Manchester, Health Education England North West, and those of us in NHS R&D are all completely committed to working collaboratively on this agenda and moving forwards, and will, wherever possible, we want to pull the collective effort to take a North West wide approach for all the reasons that I've mentioned earlier. So the roadmap is really to show how the strategy may be delivered. As I said, it's not a mandate, it's not a dictate, and we've got an implementation plan in there for clarity of understanding to show how it could move forwards. So what we're hoping to do is to pull together our NMAHP leaders from across the region, those that are system leaders, those that are in strategic posts, those that are at board level, who have that ability and influence to make the changes, but not also to make the changes, but to support each other, so that across the region, those that have got examples of good practice can share with other areas how they did that and how it can be done. So we're going to pull together a regional implementation group. And as I said, we envisage this being a group of senior NMAHP leaders and clinical academics and people from HEIs, so that we can identify the organisational and system barriers and work together to try and overcome those, develop new ideas and opportunities and move forwards. We want to sort of monitor the response to and progress of the strategy. I mean, most of you have been in the system a long time. 3 years is nothing. The first year is going to be all about engagement, winning hearts and minds. The second year will probably be looking at what we can do together. And the third year will be some activity, but probably most of that activity will be then move forwards into perhaps another strategy that's another 3 to 5 year plan. So yeah, so we'll be reviewing it. The provisional date, I think, for the group is in September. And I think there were some emails that went out quite a while ago, but the expectation is that it will be senior leaders. And I am speaking to various groups, and people will be invited to join formally. There'll be a formal invite. And I just wanted to put on here, most of you are aware, there's a lot going on across the region around training. I think we do really well around providing support and training and helping people to access fellowships. But just in case you didn't know, the regional research pre-masters internships, which are currently being delivered by Sheffield Hallam, the Northwest part will be delivered by NHS R&D Northwest, I think from January 21. Our local ARCs, both of the ARCs, North West Coast and GM, deliver pre-masters internships. NHS R&D Northwest again provides something called a pre and postdoc bridging fellowship, supporting individuals to write outstanding applications for NIHR fellowships. We've got the ICA fellowships. We've got something that's called the Scholars Programme that's run by the CRN, and also we've got an early career research and development pathway that we deliver on behalf of the North West Coast and the Greater Manchester CRM. So there is a lot of training going on, could be more. Could be more. Okay, now I'm hoping that you've all had a chance to read it in detail. That is just an overview. So I'm going to close my slides now. I'm going to stop sharing and let's have a look at questions. Okay. So you can switch your mute off now. Have we got any in the chat? So I'm a bit confused about the title of the strategy and the target audience. So the title says NMAHP, social workers on it, so how are they going? So on page 6, thanks Jackie for your question, and this has been pointed out to us on many occasions, and it was how there was a big debate about how we worded this, because if you put healthcare professionals, it's too inclusive. On page 6, we've tried to be very specific and say that it's nurses, midwives, allied health professions, which is the 14 professions with a protected title, and the wider professions that are included in those 29 NHR ICA eligible professions, which includes psychologists, social workers, healthcare scientists, and so on and so forth. Going forwards, it's just really, I mean, if people have got an idea of the title for the next one, so it feels more inclusive, but we have been made aware of this, and we are open to what titles we can use that isn't just, because we're not including medics and dentists in this, so we don't want it to be too wide. And also there was a feeling from some quarters that it needed to have nurses and midwives in that title, particularly because the NIHR has said that the 2017 review said that nurses are one of the biggest professions in the NHS workforce, but they are comparatively the least engaged in research, and that it was important that we had nurses and midwives in the title. But if we put nurses and midwives and allied health professions, and it's just really difficult, and maybe we should have put the wider professions, I don't know, but I'm open to suggestions moving forwards about how we can make sure that there's an inclusivity in the title and that we're not excluding people. But page 6 on the strategy does go into that. Any other questions? Yeah. So Linda's saying, in my experience, titles are really challenging to get right, and the potential to generate antibodies is a really tricky balance. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. And so just include everybody, or do you just have individuals? I don't know. I know that nationally, NIHR, HEE has commissioned somebody to write a strategy just for AHPs and just for nurses. But then you could argue, what about social care and everybody else? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe put the graphic you've got of all the professions on the front page. Yeah, good idea, Jackie. Good idea. So that it visually looks that it's inclusive. Yeah.
Just to add, I mean, I'm the head of allied health professions and social workers, and I hadn't read the full document, and I circulated it to AHPs, but I didn't circulate it to social workers until I've read it properly. And then I thought, oops, missed them out. And I guess other people could do the same, couldn't they?
And people have done, Jackie, thank you. Yeah, we have been made aware of that. Any other comments, questions? Linda, you've got your hand up, I think. Did you put your hand up?
Yes, I did. I put my hand up and then I put it down again. That's fine. I know that I'm outside of the region, and I've joined really out of interest today, partly because of the email trail that you'll be aware that I was copied into from one of our members of staff. And I think I absolutely understand the challenges of inclusivity and having something that's relevant for everyone when you've got a really large and diverse group of professionals that you might be that the work you were doing is applicable to. And I think also from a complexity perspective as well, with the individuals that you might be working with in the organisations who have strategic agendas that may cover a certain number of professions but not others. And I think that, you know, for me, I've learned a huge amount over the last couple of years in terms of where my role boundaries stop and where they don't, and what that then creates in other professions who might feel that they have less access to opportunities, and it's a really difficult balance to get right. So it was really just to reflect that, but I really like the strategy, and I love the way it's put together, and just really nice to see, and well done pulling it together in the midst of COVID.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Linda. I mean, I can't take full credit for it. Like I said, it has been a collaboration and lots of people have been involved in it, but thank you. So, Brenda. Yes, so psychologists are in that wider group, Brenda, yes, and I have had conversations with psychologists and social workers, and I can only apologise that if it feels that it's excluded those professions. I like the support for those in smaller teams from Jackie. A big block for those in certain professions and more isolated posts. Thank you for having that in. Okay. Any other questions? I'm looking for any more hands up. Can you see any more hands up, Leanne?
Yeah, there you go.
Brenda.
Hi, sorry. Just going back to my question. So if strategy is covering clinical psychologists, does it also cover other members of the psychology discipline who may not be qualified clinical psychologists? So PWPs, people who are practicing as therapists but may not be a clinical psychologist. Does it cover the whole range?
So we've taken the view that it's the 29 ICA eligible professions. So if they are eligible for the NIHR fellowships, then they're included. However, as I've said, because how this is implemented is actually, depends on the organisation themselves. And there's nothing in here, because we've had this conversation as well about research delivery staff, some of whom are not in that group, in that ICA group. And there's nothing in here that is not applicable to those wider groups. So we've taken the view that we're focusing on those ICA professionals, but actually, I think again on say page 6, there's nothing in there that isn't applicable to the wider groups, except for probably the exclusion of access to some of the NIHR fellowships. I don't know whether you want to comment on that, Mary.
No, I would agree. So thinking about clinical research practitioners, Brenda, they haven't been included in those ICA fellowships. But looking at the rest of the the implementation plan, there is a lot of scope for for future development that hasn't not necessarily currently there, depending on organisation.
Yeah, I've just been checking. I can't see psychology in the ICA eligibility. I think that's why I query it.
No, they are eligible. Yes, psychology are definitely eligible. Yeah, because I've just got somebody who's just completed a lectureship, and yeah. Jackie.
It was just, I don't know, it's a question or a comment. One of the things that we found for our social workers is that some of the funding streams have kind of been aimed at social workers as though they're employed by the council. And so they've excluded people that are employed by the NHS. I think deliberately behind the scenes, they're trying to target, they're not trying to sift out NHS clinical staff and aim for social workers. But what that means for us, because obviously we're a mental health trust, is that our social workers can't apply for those funding streams because they're employed by the NHS. And so they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place sometimes. So it was just a comment that sometimes we just have to, it's not just about us going into integrated services. We have employed social workers for a long time in mental health, in various roles. And sometimes I think they don't know quite where they fit sometimes, because sometimes some of the strategies or some of the information directed to them is directed as though social workers all work in the community, in councils. I mean, we've got social workers who work on the wards here or work in community teams. So I guess maybe this might uncover some of those issues as the strategy unfolds, maybe. Do you think?
Are you talking about social workers in the context of having access to NIHR, ICA fellowships, or are you just talking in the context of the inclusivity of the strategy?
Oh, access to funding opportunities. So there was one recently circulated from NIHR, and it was aimed at social care, but you couldn't apply for it if you were employed by an NHS organisation. So you could be a social worker working in social care in the NHS.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? And actually then, because I think it was conceived of the funding stream conceived social care as being separate from the NHS.
Yeah, we are aware of that stream. But however, if you are a social worker, and I think if you do so many hours within the NHS, you can apply for the other ICA fellowships. So there is the other stream. But you're right, there needs to be some more clarity around it. When we do the bridging scheme, we get applications from a whole range of people. We get applications from people that are working in a whole range of diverse professions. So we're constantly having this conversation with NIHR. Are they eligible? Are they not eligible? And we just need to keep asking the question. But you're right, there's the social care stream is separate from the NHS. But in the other stream that we've been working on, the other ICA fellowships, I think if you'd got 50%, it might not even be 50% of your time was in the NHS, you could apply for those fellowships.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you.
Tim, you've had your hand up for a while. Hi, Tim.
Hello, thank you. I noticed from your partners at the HEE are in there, and I wondered what influence you have over funding of fellowships and the like you have with the HEE, because I think one of the issues probably that if you expand the number of groups that are applying for the awards as they are, at the moment, we all, especially at a doctoral level, we have people who are fundable but not funded for those awards. So how will you influence funding decisions or manage expectations?
How will NHS R&D Northwest or the collaborative? Through
the strategy and the collaborative.
Well, HE obviously only fund the internships at the internship level, and also at the bridging scheme level. And I do know that I think this year the funding has increased, but again that's dependent. Unfortunately, we're dependent on the wider work, what's left over, which is wrong. And I think as a region, we're having a number of conversations with NIHR. Generally, but overall as a region, we haven't been as successful as other areas of the country in general in successful applications. And I think from HE's perspective, the bridging and the internships, if we can expand them and increase the quality, all the better. But as a team, from an NHS R&D perspective, we also want to broaden that there are other routes as well, and that you're right, there's lots of fundable people out there. And is that the brilliant rising stars? Is that it? You've had your 2 chances and it's over. What we're trying to do is say no, there are, and a number of our people who've been on bridging have got fellowships through charitable organisations, through professional bodies. So we're supporting them through coaching and mentoring to say, okay, this route hasn't been successful, but there are other ways, because we don't want to lose that potential. Hello, Louise. Hello.
Hiya. I just wanted to ask, you've talked a bit there about looking beyond NIHR, I guess. And I just wondered about the opportunity and how that might be, if it's captured in the strategy, in terms of, I'm on the panel this year for the first time for the Wellcome Trust and for the MRC, because their pathways are now open to AHPs.
Yeah.
And we got no AHP applications at all in one of the rounds, one in another, and we funded one. And I just think it's a bit of a double-edged, I don't think the application is very well set up yet for AHPs. But until we get the good quality applications in, there's a danger we might lose that as a resource if we're not sort of highlighting it, and it's not a flagship for AHPs to go look, and NMAHP's my AHP bias, sorry. But So yeah, it's just a comment really. Is there anything in the strategy or ways to think about how we can increase the visibility and the quality so that people see those extra streams of funding, that we're not just limiting ourselves to NIHR, which are clearly our biggest funder, but other funders are available.
Yeah. So I know if it's not explicit, I don't know which aim it was about increasing, but what we're saying, one of the aims is increasing the opportunities, and that comes under that aim. So when we're in the implementation group, those sorts of things are what we need to discuss, and about the dissemination, but not just the dissemination. It's about how we support people to put in those applications at the right level. So yeah, so it is in there, and it's not being specific, you know, it's not explicit, but it's in, I think it's aim 3. Is it aim 3? That is about making sure that we provide those training opportunities in its broader sense. Any other comments? I mean, some of the challenges we've got, I mean, the region, I think, is doing, and certainly the North in general, I think, has really done a lot in recent years to increase the opportunities. I mean, HE aren't here, but one of the challenges is career pathways. Career pathways. We've still got a number of postdocs going back to jobbing band 6 and band 7s and managing waiting lists. And really, it's how we support our organisations to develop more opportunities around that clinical, and how we work more closely with HEIs as well. Any other questions? I mean, if you think of something later on, or you think of something, you know, don't hesitate to email me, and I'll do my best to answer it. I'll certainly talk to the rest of the collaboration team. No. Well, thanks. Leanne's put my email address there. It's in the chat, just in case you haven't got access to it. And I'm always happy to have conversations. I have lots of one-to-one conversations, because you can really dig deep, can't you, in a one-to-one conversation, and discuss individual challenges as well as organisational barriers and things that maybe people are not comfortable with in an open forum. But if there's no more questions, so we'll stop recording. And did you say it's going to be on our website, Leanne? So there is a page on our website, on the NHS R&D Northwest website. If you go onto our website, there's a tab across the top that says strategy, and all things strategy are on that page, and we'll keep it updated. And as I said, the next stage is September. We'll be pulling together an implementation group of the key people in the region, and hopefully coming up with some really exciting stuff of how we can move forwards and do some really extraordinary, exciting things. Fingers crossed. Okay.